He always tried to look tough in his pictures. But in his senior picture, he's got a busted lip right there from Cassie where they were fighting.
Jessica Peavy believed she'd found enough evidence in her son's phone to convince Darlington County law enforcement this might not have been an accident. Peavy says she knew there was always trouble between her son and his 2-year-older girlfriend.
Caleb and Cassie had been together for 2 years, and their relationship, I knew, she was very, very possessive, controlling, and jealous.
A relationship that at times, she says, was violent.
I went to put it on him at the funeral, and I couldn't because then I remembered that him and Cassie had gotten into a fight, and she ripped it. Same thing, she ripped it there and broke it.
When was this fight?
A few weeks before his funeral. I knew they fought all the time. I thought it was normal teenage fighting, girlfriend, boyfriend, but it wasn't. It wasn't just regular teenage fighting. This was more domestic violence.
The Peavys reviewed more than a year of texts between their son and Cassie Escobar, texts detailing many profanity-laced arguments.
If they were around each other and breathing, they were fighting. And it was physical, and I went and picked him up one day, and he said, Mama, he said, I don't hit females. I said, well, females, if they're going to put themselves in a man's position and beat you, he said, I'll go to jail. He said, they don't believe that men get beat. Yeah, but I feel responsible. Like, as a parent, I should have been able to protect him.
In the days after his death, Peavy says she made multiple trips to the sheriff's office trying to turn her son's phone in as evidence. But no one, she says, would take it. Not even the lead investigator, Heather Mays.
I went through the messages. That day, I contacted the investigator, and I told her she needed to get this phone. She told me she couldn't get the phone. She had to get a search warrant from another county. I told her I would bring the phone to her.
Before that, she was in our kitchen, and we tried to give her the phone, and she wouldn't take it.
The investigator?
Yes.
The investigator saying that she couldn't take it because she needed to get a search warrant for Chesterfield County because we live in Chesterfield County.
We printed off all the messages, put them on several USBs. I gave some of the messages and the USB to the investigator. I went to the sheriff's office. I was calling every day. I went down there until I spoke with someone to tell them something is going on. And they just brushed it off.
We searched Darlington County's 2 magistrates' offices looking for a search warrant. That record would show whether investigators seized any property as evidence in the case. We found nothing.
Me and my grandmother were the last people to talk to him. Nobody interviewed us or anything. Whenever I said something to Heather Mays, the investigator, about not talking to us, she's like, here's a stack of voluntary statements. Just fill these out and get everybody else to fill them out.
Was Investigator Mays here when you filled that statement out?
No. She told me to fill out all the statements and then bring them to her and she'd sign them.
So she didn't witness you giving that statement?
No, she didn't. As you can see, she did not witness anywhere on here of me giving this statement. She never witnessed it or anything.
And this is your statement?
Yeah, that's my statement.
What's going through your mind at this point?
I'm beyond livid. And somebody's going to work this case, so I made sure that it was not her.
This is the case file for Caleb James.
Out of options.
Just when we get information we think may be pertinent to the investigation, we always keep it in the case file, so that's it.
The Peavys turned to Darlington County coroner Todd Hardy.
This was very early on. I mean, a couple hours after the incident occurred is when I decided we would take a closer look at it. The things didn't add up to me, that it looked like he had taken his own life, that he had actually pulled the trigger. I didn't think he did.
Hardy says his investigators continued working to figure this out. The coroner says he requested copies of the deputy's body camera recordings, but the sheriff's investigators refused to release them. Days later, Hardy got the autopsy report and officially ruled Caleb James's death a homicide.
It led us to the fact that he didn't shoot himself. But that lends back to the accidental or the non-accidental. It's either an accident or it's not. The way you determine that, Jody, is you do it through investigation. In this case, that's what we did.
This was not an accident.
Well, no, this was not an accident.
Hang on.
At this point, 3 weeks after the shooting, the sheriff's office hadn't accused Cassie Escobar of anything. And Peavy, who was still talking to Escobar at the time, says Cassie told her she was never interviewed by anyone in law enforcement after the night of the shooting. Escobar remained free, sticking to her story that her boyfriend accidentally shot himself.
I said, I want to try asking the young lady, did you do this? And if so, what was your thinking behind that?
The coroner asked Escobar to take a polygraph at the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division's headquarters in Columbia.
This family came to you asking for help.
They did.
And when you picked up the phone and asked SLED to do this polygraph, everything in this case changed.
It did. It certainly did.
One person is in custody in connection with a man's shooting death. Darlington County deputies charged Cassandra Escobar with involuntary manslaughter.
This is the polygraph report.
Well, the interview was over. The young lady told us, actually told us the truth.
Sitting inside an interview room at SLED, Cassie Escobar changed her story. She told investigators she and Caleb James had a history of playing with a firearm when empty and acting like they are shooting each other. She told investigators James handed her the pistol that night, told her it was unloaded, and to shoot him. When Escobar pulled the trigger, the gun fired. She also told investigators her boyfriend was depressed and threatened suicide before.
I was relieved, to be honest with you. I really was. I felt like that was the case, but we feel a lot of things in investigation, in death investigation especially. In this case, I felt like that was the case. I really did. So I felt a little bit relieved that that there was some validity in what Mom was telling me. She was right.
Before she could leave SLED's headquarters, Hardy says he ordered deputies to charge Escobar with involuntary manslaughter. 3 weeks after Caleb James died on her bedroom floor, Cassie Escobar was formally charged in his death. She was freed on a $25,000 bond.
You were performing an investigation when no investigation was being performed. Had you not asked and got that polygraph done, where might this be today?
I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure where it would be.
The original programs, the video and everything had Cassie's name and pictures of her, and I've had to go back and get everything edited to get her off of them.
Coming up, the county prosecutor takes the case against Cassie Escobar back to the grand jury.
I've waited 8 months for this, and it hurts because I cared for this girl at one time.
Let's go do it. Sheriff, you got a second?
And we confront the sheriff.
Why wouldn't you explain what your office did and did not do?
That will be handled in court, sir.
When the confession continues after the break.